Call of Duty and free usually don't belong in the same sentence, but I'll give it a go. As of the making of this video, Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War is free as part of PlayStation Plus Essentials monthly lineup, and we're taking a look on PlayStation 5. This review will also be spoiler free. As usual with games that are part of a series, here's where I stand with Call of Duty. I've played all of them at some point or another, but Treyarch's games are consistently my favourites, with the massive exception of Black Ops 4. We cover a new game every single week, so if you like what we do, consider subscribing and buckle up because we've got a lot to cover with Cold War. And with that, we've got a job to do. We're here to let you know if Black Ops Cold War is still worth your time almost 3 years later. Of the new gen COD games, Black Ops Cold War is easily the most classic feeling, and easily offers the most diverse gameplay across the board. With all of the sections of this review, we're going to have to split everything 3 ways: campaign, multiplayer and zombies, and then cover the stuff that affects everything. Let's start with the unique campaign features. Right off the bat, we have a character creator. This isn't massively in-depth, but does allow you to tune your identity a little bit, and even choose some unique gameplay perks. A system like this absolutely didn't need to be here, but it is a very welcome addition. Mission variety is also pretty stellar, despite there being only 9 main missions in the game. Obviously, you've got your Call of Duty staples, the sneaky sniper mission, the ridiculous set pieces, the one mission with a surprising amount of depth, and the kooky Black Ops mission. But cliches are turned on their head, sometimes literally, and the campaign does a lot of work to keep you engaged. The best example of this is Desperate Measures, which has you sneaking around KGB headquarters, then getting into an assault, before a little defense section, and all capped off with a bombastic set piece. I'd also like to give special mention to the mission Break On Through, because you can just tell the team had a blast developing this level, and it's just begging to be broken. I had a lot of fun seeing exactly where the limits lay. There's even a safe house outside of missions, where you can talk to your team, look over evidence and solve puzzles to assist with the optional side missions. This is a fantastic gameplay narrative link, as it actually makes you feel like you're scraping for clues to catch Perseus, which you are, because evidence has to be found within other missions. You also have choices within gameplay. These are never massive and mostly amount to saving or killing people, but they do have some tangible effect on the story, and this whole system helps give the player some more agency within the narrative. You care because you're actively taking part in it. The campaign does a lot right with varied mission design and the extra features, but unfortunately it does suffer from being too short. Gameplay systems don't really get any room to breathe, and the AI is unfortunately a little too dumb. On the other hand, multiplayer and zombies had the benefit of getting an entire year to have extra content piled on, and good grief, does it show. The multiplayer gameplay offering is frankly insane. You've got your standard 6v6 modes, but also 12v12 on the same maps. Party game modes like Prop Hunt and Infected are a permanent fixture. Combined Arms puts 12v12 combat on bigger maps. Fireteam pits 4-man squads against each other on massive maps. Face Off ratchets up the chaos of gunfight maps with 6 players on each team, and Gunfight can get nice and tense with tournaments for rewards. There's just so much gameplay variety at a base level, and it helps that Treyarch found ways to bolster up the content available for every single game mode without having to put in a lot of extra work. Multiplayer map design is overall very good, with only a handful of maps that I actively try to avoid, but thanks to the addition of map voting, democracy usually has my back. Gunsmith returns for Modern Warfare, and it honestly feels a little tacked on here. Almost every single gun has the exact same set of attachments, with some minor exceptions, but on the plus side, we do have extremely detailed stats that tell you what each attachment is doing. Due to the similar attachments, weapon leveling can feel a bit like Groundhog Day, and progression is pretty slow. There's also the camo grind for both multiplayer and zombies, but outside of that, extraneous rewards are very limited. Challenges do reward calling cards and emblems, Prestige offers some unique rewards like level emblems from older games, and gunfight tournaments do offer gun blueprints if you win, but outside of that, if you want any sort of cosmetics for your operators or weapons, you'll need to get it with cold hard cash. Black Ops Cold War also introduced a new score streak system, and I honestly think that it's horrible. The deal here is that score streaks cost a lot more score, but you don't lose score when you die. Going on kill streaks does increase your multiplier, however. For the most part, this isn't acutely terrible. It pushes players to move instead of camping for their AC-130, but one kill streak throws off the balance of the entire game. Air Patrol is far too powerful. This is a mid-tier streak, which means a reasonably skillful player will be getting this every single match, and it destroys all aerial kill streaks. including ones like the Chopper Gunner and Harp, which have a higher score requirement than the Air Patrol. It can absolutely feel horrible to hop into the seat of your Chopper Gunner, ready to gun down the lobby, only for it to be immediately destroyed. The biggest bummer about multiplayer is something that affects all online games past their golden age. The players left playing now are the hardcore fans, which means that they're way better equipped with unlocks, knowledge and mechanical skill, and it can make some matches absolutely miserable to play. Zombies manages to be a wonderful iteration on the age-old formula. There was one design principle in mind here, and it shows. Get the player killing as many zombies as quickly as possible. With that in mind, there's also plenty of ways to kill zombies. Onslaught puts the carnage on regular multiplayer maps. Outbreak is an entirely new take on the formula, dropping you into a region and having you complete objectives before moving on. And of course, we have classic round-based zombies. Round-based is obviously the star of the show. There are 4 maps, and I think all of them are great, with Mauer de Toten being the clear standout on all fronts. Dropping into a game, you'll be surprised to see that you can take whatever weapon you want with you. No longer are you confined to the M1911, you'll also have a field upgrade, which is a chargeable ability that can save you in a pinch. Zombies themselves have been tweaked, they're faster and hit harder as the rounds progress. Their health does eventually cap out though, and this means that almost any fully upgraded weapon is viable. There's no perk limit anymore, so no more choosing between Juggernog and Speed Cola. The main quests are far more approachable than learning actual quantum physics in Black Ops 3, and the mode has been designed around being more welcoming and streamlined, but I don't think that's a bad thing. If you want the complicated stuff, Black Ops 3 still exists. Each map is also a lot more open than previous games, giving everyone plenty of space to run around. It's a very diverse experience, but it eventually gets trivially easy thanks to upgrades. As you survive rounds, you'll earn crystals, and these can be used outside of matches to purchase permanent upgrades for your weapons, perks, and field upgrades. This provides some nice tangible progress to the mode and incentivizes high round runs, but an option to disable these for some extra difficulty would have been nice, because once you buy them, you cannot unequip them. The whole mode is really crying out for custom options to really tailor the experience, and we had these settings in Black Ops 4. It's a shame to see them missing here. But if high rounds aren't your thing, we now have the exfil system, which lets you end your game without having to run into a crowd of zombies and down yourself twice. You just radio in for a chopper, have one last fight, and then you're off. I like this system because it ends every match on a little bit of a high, and makes it feel like you've actually completed a game rather than just giving up. Outbreak felt a little bare bones upon release, but now feels almost overwhelming with content. It's a very different gameplay loop of exploring and completing objectives, but the lower exploration tension is compensated for with higher objective tension, especially later in matches. It's a fantastic reinvention of the formula, and I can't wait to see where Treyarch goes with it next. Yes, we are pretending that Vanguard doesn't exist. As for the mechanics that encompass the entire game, they are pretty solid, as usual with Call of Duty. Movement feels a little clunkier than the newer Call of Duties, but it still feels good. Weapons feel great to shoot, and for the most part, the entire roster is very viable in both multiplayer and zombies. There are a few outliers, like the snipers in multiplayer, and the shotguns in zombies are just insanely powerful. Customization unfortunately gets a little uniform, as guns have the same pool of attachments, but there isn't too much wasted space. Each individual attachment is filling some sort of unique role, unlike the newer games where you have 5 red dot sights that all really do the same thing. Overall, we're giving the gameplay a solid 4 out of 5. Treyarch have done a great job with this entire package, but the limited campaign, multiplayer progression, and regression of zombies tweaks compared to Black Ops 4 do knock a point off.
I want to know everything that's going on inside this building.
This is almost as good as the 80s have ever looked. There was a lot of care and attention put into the art style here, but there are a few cracks. The visual difference between this and Modern Warfare 2019 feels very alike the jump from Modern Warfare 2 to Black Ops back in 2010. We're trading a highly realistic art style to something with a more unique identity, and it looks fantastic. Environments are dense with detail and wildly varied. Character models look great for the most part, and animations, both weapons and character, are sublime. It just feels good to shoot the weapons in this game. They're all loud as hell, have great haptic feedback, and the animations, whilst a lot stiffer than those seen in Modern Warfare 2019, are still great. These qualities are knocked up to 11 with the zombies' wonder weapons, which are all insanely unique in their own right. Treyarch has also nailed the presentation of the world for the most part. Every single mission briefing is insanely beautiful, and the multiplayer map roster takes us all around the globe, and it never skips a beat in terms of look. Each map even has a wonderfully presented loading screen that shows each locale off in all its glory. The only misfire here are the zombies maps, which don't look like zombies maps. I don't think zombies are going to be in here. The exception, again, is Mauer de Toten, which is the only non-military base map, and the only map that looks ravaged by the dead. Outbreak and Onslaught are even worse for this, because they're just using the base multiplayer maps. Still, the zombies themselves, and all the extra flair, like the perk machines and bosses, look phenomenal as usual. The overall sound design of the game is great, guns pack a punch, that chink sound with every kill is bliss, and you can hear the flesh getting ripped from a horde of zombies. This is only exemplified by the soundtrack. There are plenty of 60s and 80s staples in the campaign, and even more licensed tracks for when you're driving around in Outbreak or Fireteam. The overall OST by Jack Wall does a great job of enhancing the game, and some old favourites like Adrenaline from Black Ops 2 can be equipped in the menus. Once again, zombies is the weak link. The Damned theme rendition is excellent, but the original songs just aren't very good. Kevin Sherwood has returned, but Eleanor Siegman and Maluka haven't, and their absence is sorely felt. We're a long way from the highs of Dead Again, 115 and Abracadabra, just to name a few. In-game UI is sleek and informative, but does border on obtrusive at times. There's always a lot going on that you need to visually manage. Menu UI is similar, where the design is simple, but navigating between matches can be a bit of a hassle. Overall though, the game looks great, and the stylized art direction is definitely going to help with aging. There are a few rough patches, and whilst the art direction does do a lot to inform gameplay, sometimes it goes a little too far. Still, this is a comfortable 4 out of 5. Call of Duty is not known for fantastic narratives, and overall, Black Ops Cold War falls in the middle of the pack. Let's switch up this order. Multiplayer had a seasonal narrative which did a good job of establishing the locations, operators and weapons that came with that season, and whilst this isn't present now, there is some narrative backing to the multiplayer. If you really want the context, all of the narrative trailers and things are still up on YouTube. Zombies has traded out Lovecraftian multiverse hopping for a more grounded story, but suffers incredibly hard from the lack of a core crew. Here, you pick an operator as you would in multiplayer, and they have some voice lines. Unfortunately, for the most part, these voice lines are super generic, and it hurts the whimsy of the mode. The characters also can't riff off of each other because a game can be made up of any 4 operators, and there are like 40 of them. A big part of Zombies' narrative identity has been lost here. Instead, we now have a few crews of characters that talk over the gameplay, and it feels like a band-aid fix. I would have much preferred to just have played as the radio crews, and have them be able to talk a lot more. The overall story is decently interesting. We've got a globe-trotting adventure to stop the spread of the Dark Ether, and everything is contextualized. There's plenty of intel to read if that's your thing, and the ending wrapped everything up, but left on a great cliffhanger. I am interested to see where this goes next, even if I'm not as invested as I was with Black Ops 3. Campaign is a very mixed bag. We've already talked about the cool narrative gameplay link with the safe house and evidence systems. These really made me feel like a Black Ops. I do like that the story has a solid goal, catch Perseus, and that there are some solid twists and turns throughout, but the overall writing is a bit too weak to support the stakes of these twists. Some scenes that should be super tense are laughable, and for the most part, the new supporting cast is woefully underused due to the short length of the campaign, even if they're not bad characters. The only exception is our man Russell Adler. Black Ops Cold War is a direct story sequel to the original Black Ops, and I think that Adler is a fantastic addition to the cast. The returning cast feels a little hollow though, and I think the main cause of this is that the original voice actors didn't return. There are some fun character moments though, like Woods tackling the mannequin, or Sims roasting Lazar about Park. There was some care to flesh out the crew here, but it didn't quite get there. The overall storyline also feels a bit too similar to the original Black Ops, but at the same time, the direct references didn't feel cheap and managed to come off as nice homages rather than, wow, look at the nostalgia. Those choices we talked about earlier also factor into the ending. The canon ending is just fine, but the non-canon bad ending is actually really dark, and I loved it. Overall, Black Ops Cold War's narrative across its 3 modes is pretty average. It is cool that everything is connected and nothing here is outright awful, but a lot of elements are underutilized and unfortunately feel a bit hollow, especially when we're talking about zombies. Black Ops Cold War is getting a 3 out of 5 for its overall narrative offering.
The information from Volkov confirms our worst fears. Perseus.
Black Ops Cold War is an absurd content offering with some great settings, but unfortunately is a little rough around the technical edges. Content-wise, you're getting a full campaign with 5 difficulty settings and 3 save slots. Then you're getting one of the most expansive multiplayer offerings in the series. 2v2 and 3v3 gunfight, 6v6 on over 20 base maps, 6v6 on the 9 gunfight maps, 12v12 on the base maps, 12v12 combined arms, fire team, party modes, bot matches, and custom games. There is an absurd amount of weapons shared between multiplayer and zombies, and a lot of extra goodies like the theatre mode and even classic Activision arcade games. Zombies can be played on all of the multiplayer maps or on the 4 round-based maps. Outbreak is its entirely own thing, and Dead Ops Arcade is as expansive as it's ever been and is basically a side mode. Unfortunately, this amount of content would be hard to totally polish, and there are some issues. I had a lot of frame drop when things would get crazy across all modes. In campaign, I managed to get spotted through a solid wall and lagged somehow. Multiplayer matchmaking was also a bit wobbly and struggled to always put me in the match that it had just found. Settings wise though, we're getting a great selection. There is a separate accessibility menu that shows all of the accessibility settings, but we're going to go through everything in its main category. Sensitivity can be adjusted for each stick alongside ADS sensitivity. There are button layout presets, but no remappable controls. Bumpers and triggers can be flipped. Vertical look can be inverted, but not horizontal. Aim response curve can be adjusted. Controller vibration can be enabled and has an intensity slider. On PS5, the trigger effect can be toggled. You're probably going to want to turn this off for multiplayer matches. Aim assist can be enabled and aim assist mode adjusted. ADS aim assist has a separate toggle. You can adjust airborne mantle, grounded mantle, aim down sight, ADS interruption, steady aim, and armor behavior. Attack vehicle control mode can also be adjusted. Stick layout has a few presets, and you can set sticks to swap when you ADS. Max and min input thresholds can be adjusted for each stick. Bumper dead zone sensitivity can also be adjusted. Controller sounds can be enabled. Auto move forward and auto sprint can be toggled. Sprint behavior can be adjusted. Sprint cancels reload and parachute auto deploy can be toggled. Equipment and interact reload behavior can be adjusted. Safe area bounds can be adjusted. There are colorblind presets, or you can completely customize the colors that represent you, allies, enemies, and your party. There is a brightness slider. Ray tracing can be enabled if your device supports it, but this will disable 120Hz, which also has a toggle if your device supports it. You can adjust split screen orientation. There is a field of view slider, and you can set ADS and vehicle aiming FOV to be affected or independent. Motion blur has a few presets. You can mute all of the audio. There are sliders for master, music, sound effects, dialogue, and cinematics volume. You can also select an audio preset. You can enable hit marker sound effects and choose between default and classic sound. Voice chat can be enabled, and you can choose chat channels. Voice chat volume has a slider. You can choose microphone activation mode and bind push to talk. Microphone sensitivity and volume can be adjusted with sliders. Subtitles can be enabled and have further settings for size and background. Here are the regular subtitles with 50% background in game. The following HUD elements can be enabled or disabled: crosshairs, hit markers, damage-based hit markers, ally health bars, enemy health bars, player names, horizontal compass, floating damage numbers in zombies, and zombie name and health bars. In-game alert icons, input device icons, and mouse tooltips can be toggled. Every setting also has a small description of exactly what it's changing, and if applicable, a little image. Overall, this is a great list of settings with some great quality of life tweaks. The only omission is remappable controls, but there are plenty of presets. Overall, the content offering here is insane, and it's backed up by some great tweaks, but the technical issues do bring the overall score down to a 4 out of 5.
How long until we have a lead on Perseus?
They're about to get started. Adler's in West Berlin.
We've got a lot to cover in this commitment section. Let's start big. The full install of Black Ops Cold War is an insane 326.9 gigabytes of hard drive space on PS5. If you have an Xbox Series X or PS5, that's about half of your total available hard drive space, and it won't fit on an Xbox Series S. You can uninstall elements of the game you don't intend to play though, such as the campaign once you've beaten it. Still though, this install is frankly absurd, and you'll have to be extra careful if you've got slow internet or a data cap. The campaign will only take you around 5 hours to complete, and each mission is around 20 to 30 minutes long, with the exception of Desperate Measures, which clocks in at just over 40. With the campaign, there's no fat. This is respecting your time, but it is a little lean. Multiplayer matches will take around 10 minutes if you're playing the base modes, or 20 minutes in Fireteam. As always, it's incredibly easy to fit matches into short amounts of free time, or play all day. This is the foundation that Call of Duty was built on. Zombies, as always, varies wildly in game time. Exfil makes things a bit more manageable, and you can queue for forced exfil matches in both round-based and outbreak, so if you only have a set amount of time to play, you can hop into a game without worry. Zombies progression is also pretty nice. You earn crystals at a decent pace, and aside from the very last upgrades, you should frequently have something new to play with each match. Unfortunately, weapon leveling is pretty slow. In Zombies, weapon XP actually scales, so if you're playing solo, you get less, which just sucks. This grind feels worse because 95% of the time you're unlocking the same set of attachments. Outside of weapon levels and camos, there's not a lot of cosmetic progression. Challenges award calling cards, and you get a key with every prestige to exchange for a handful of blueprints, calling cards and emblems. But there is no battle pass anymore, which means no operator skins, no blueprints or other bits and pieces. If you want any cosmetics, you'll have to venture to the store. This is a constant with the new gen Call of Duties. The store is ridiculously priced, and you should not buy anything from it. This was a full-priced premium game upon launch, and these bundles are asking between £10 and £20 a pop for a skin and a few blueprints and some extra faff. It is absurd, and it is made even worse because the argument that these prices were for the free-to-play Warzone will be mute in a couple of months when Warzone Caldera shuts down for good. Overall, it is very easy to fit Black Ops Cold War into your free time, but that time won't be fully respected, and that's if you can get past the mammoth install. Then there's the joke of the store, and everything wraps up to a 2 out of 5 on our commitment scale.
Was it worth it?
Adler managed to get the list of sleeper agent names, despite himself. He's got balls, I'll give him that.
Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War is still worth your time. It has a solid offering on all fronts, campaign, multiplayer and zombies, and it's the closest you'll get to classic COD on current gen. There are some missteps, but there was a lot of care put into the whole project. The campaign is a great gameplay experience, even if the story is a little lacking. The multiplayer has an insane amount of variety, and Zombies was reinvented wonderfully, even if it doesn't hit the heights of Black Ops 3. With Modern Warfare 2 being a bit of a disappointment, now is the perfect time to give Treyarch's latest a go, despite its flaws.